Do you want to do that again? Can I do that again? Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Literary Canon Ball.
Yeah!
Literary Canon Ball is a podcast for anyone who wants a fun and feisty conversation about books with plenty of feminism and plenty of puns. I am Kirby Fenwick, writer, sometime editor, and owner of a structurally unsound TBR pile, and I'm joined by
Neve Marnie, student by day, writer, editor by night, and reader by nature.
Nice.
Love it. So professional. And I'm Fee Murphy, also a writer, also an editor, sometimes poet when I'm feeling inspired by nature. This is true.
Nice.
Brilliant.
How are we feeling?
I am so nervous.
First episode.
Sweaty palms. Definitely run to the bathroom a few times. Just, being
Nervous
honest.
peas. Nervous peas.
Yeah, like an athlete on the blocks, ready to dive into this. Can't swim, can't run, but I am an athlete.
Fine. It's totally fine. You're a pro reader.
Professional reader.
That's an athlete.
It's I can't
Gold
say
medal.
award-winning gold medalist just yet, but hey, we might give each other prizes.
Toad's getting there though.
Yeah. There will be
I
prizes.
believe in you, Fee.
Thanks. I carb loaded.
Definitely carb loaded yesterday.
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
Sweet potato super fries. It's my thing.
Nice. Okay, if you'd like to know a little bit more about what we're all about here at Literary Canon Ball,
And what we're snacking on.
very important.
yeah.
We recommend jumping back and listening to our pilot episode where we delve a little deeper, but not too deep, into all things Literary Canon Ball. If you've already done that, or you're just a daredevil type who's happy to jump in head first, then all right, let's do it.
Let's go.
Starting gun.
So, what book has the honour of being the first ever to feature on the Literary Canon Ball podcast? Drum roll, please. Excellent. Very impressive.
It's really hard to make page turning sound effects.
Don't rip
Shit.
it.
I own the book, don't worry. It's not a library
Fine.
book.
Okay, so now we've destroyed the book. This month we'll be chatting about the forgotten classic that is Dodie Smith's I Capture the Castle. Smith wrote I Capture the Castle, her first novel, while living in California during the Second World War. She was already an accomplished screenwriter and later wrote the smash hit 101 Dalmatians, which you may be familiar with.
Possibly.
Might
I
not.
may have reenacted the spaghetti scene with myself. Doesn't work with one person.
I write this sitting in the kitchen sink. So begins I Capture the Castle, and so we are introduced to the tolerably bright Cassandra Mortmain. Is that right, Mortmain? Would you say Mortmain?
Sort of like, if you're going French, it's more like Mortmain. So like Voldemort, it's meant to be.
I love how your French reference is
Harry Potter.
No, but really,
Voldemort and Harry.
Shit. JK actually used quite a lot of like different languages. Like the truth-telling serum, veritaserum, is the root is from veritas, which is French for truth. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Anyway, I'm just going to say Mortmain.
Discussion
Should we just
about
say
Harry
Mortmain?
Yeah, just say Mortmain. Fuck
Okay,
it.
cool.
Fuck it.
Okay, so I Capture the Castle was published in 1948 and tells the story of Cassandra and her eccentric family. Her writer father, who is currently suffering from writer's block, her former artist model stepmother Topaz, her sister Rose, on whose potential marriage the family's fortunes rest, Stephen, the son of a former housekeeper who lives with the family, and Thomas, Cassandra's younger brother, who reveals himself to be nearly as bright as Cassandra herself. All of them live in gentile poverty in a crumbling castle in rural England. The story gets going once the Cottons, the wealthy Americans who become the family's new landlords, after inheriting the nearby Scotney Hall, no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly, when they arrive. Okay, so, thoughts?
The thoughts. All of the thoughts. Okay, so my first thought, do you guys classify this book as YA? For the listeners who may not know, that's young adult.
I don't know.
I originally read this book about probably 8 to 10 years ago and definitely picked it up as a classic. I actually shocked. Like, not shocked. It doesn't surprise me that it's YA, because I just thought, oh, it's a classic. But
I don't think one excludes the other, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. Yes, I do agree with that. But I'm just like, oh, I'm not a big YA reader. I don't have anything against YA, but I still haven't categorized it as YA in my mind. It's still just a banging classic.
I have to say that I kind of feel like the whole YA thing is more a marketing thing than it is actually. Do you know what I mean? Like, it feels kind of like, I mean, this was published in 1948. Like, YA was not even a thing in 1948. So it's kind of like we're classifying it now as a YA.
And I find it's really interesting that in a relatively short period of time, so 8 to 10 years since I picked it up and read it, it's like been recategorized into something not completely different, but something very specific. And in terms of the cover, and we'll put pictures up of the cover on our social media accounts like Instagram and whatnot, I fucking hate this cover so much. I've literally been turning it upside down so I don't have to look at it.
We should say that Fee and I have the same cover.
The Vintage
Smith cover, which you can sort of, I guess it's a picture of a young girl from like sort of
torso,
it's like a half of her body, but you can't see her face.
Haha, see? YA, torso, young girl. Ha 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 ha.
Is that like a trope?
That's a trope.
Yeah, right.
Not that I enjoy that trope. I actually think it would be better suited for a different book, to be honest, other than a capture.
What did you think this cover actually meant? Because to me, it just looks so...
It's bland.
It's bland. It doesn't represent anything except like, ooh, a girl standing
with flowers.
I mean, it's not whimsical.
It's not even like in a wreath, which would kind of connect.
Yeah.
She's just holding
them.
It kind of looks like a photo stock image of what does a consciously naive young woman, girl,
vintage
look
pastoral.
Like. Yeah, and like I think it's a beautiful image. Whoever took the picture,
we're not dissing you.
Yeah, it's a great image.
We're definitely
but
dissing you.
I just don't think it's anything to do with the story, and I think it is very much kind of trying to pigeonhole it to a specific readership.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I think it's a book for everyone.
We should say that a friend of ours on our socials said that she thought the cover was quite foreboding, which is really interesting because if anyone's read the story, it's not.
It's not foreboding
in the least.
I think. Well, the thing is with YA, I know because I read the reading on our website that we've got, and the first thing, I can't remember exactly what the website was, but it was talked about how a YA, that horrible categorization, and I'm sort of, I think it does actually sit very well in the YA category, but that doesn't simplify the book in any way, I don't think. It's just the concerns of Cassandra and it's Capture the Castle is so heavily rooted in Cassandra's point of view. I think it slides into classics like, The Outsiders or Anne of Green Gables even.
That's true. What did you think it works as? Because structurally the novel is set up as a journal. And it is all from Cassandra's perspective. And there's some great sections throughout where she refers to writing each entry as a journal.
Yeah.
Does it work?
I really liked that.
I didn't think I was going to. And at the beginning, I was a little bit dismayed to find that it was journal, just because historical plus journal are individually I'm a little bit wary of, and together I'm very wary of. But I think
learning so much about you, Neve. Ooh, journals.
Just because
Crossing that off the Christmas list.
It takes so much skill for a writer to do it correctly.
I think
Dodie
she does. I think she really does, and I think the structure of the journals really allows us to get inside Cassandra as a character, which sounds super creepy. But you can really, you really feel you really get a feel for her in a way that you wouldn't if it was written from another, if it was written from just a third person point of view, or even if she was writing it as first person without that kind of journal structure. I think it gives it a really interesting way, and also it kind of allows her to reflect on what's happening as it's happening. Like, you can see it a little bit when you're reading it, when she's kind of reflecting on what has happened as she's writing it in her journal. So I think it's really great structure, and I think Dodie Smith does it fantastically.
I love the structure for all those reasons, but I also think what is outstanding is how much every other character goes through their own arc and development.
Yes.
And Cassandra captures that. I mean, she's absolutely incredibly astute, but not in a really annoying way. Like, you're totally on board with her.
Yeah.
But there's actual narrative tension throughout, and she manages to like set chapters up where she's like, oh, something happens. No, I'll start from the beginning.
And
that's such a beautiful little
oh.
conceit as well, like that whole having a diary and being like, oh, I want to write, but no, I need to set up the context first, which is something I've done with like journals. So I completely was on board with that, and I just don't think this book could have been written in any other way than what it was. I mean, there are just little moments like when Cassandra is really sad that Rose has gone away, and I'm like, oh my God, I can just transport it to my 12-year-old self when my sister moved out of home.
Yeah.
And it changed the family dynamic quite a bit, and I'm just like, you cannot have written that in any other way than a diary where you're just really reflecting and also just...
For sure.
I think that's really, like, when you say reflecting, I think that's what I sort of latched on so strongly to, and I said it before, like, the journal structure allows her to do that. In any other format, you wouldn't be able to do that. So the journal gives her the opportunity to do that, and I think we then as readers really kind of fall in love with her as a character.
Of course.
I really enjoyed how she doesn't always have nice thoughts or doesn't always have clear-cut feelings. And I think it's that relationship with Rose, her sister, that has completely captured my imagination and affection for her, because there's a kind of a love triangle thing sort of happening. There's different love interests, but
Love
it's her.
square.
It's definitely square.
So many angles happening. But it was this relationship with her sister, and I'll read out a passage. It's just a line, don't worry. What made me feel worst of all was that I knew in my heart that she was fonder of me than of anyone in the world, just as I was of her, until I fell in love with Simon. And that idea, I definitely felt heartbroken when, like, my sister, she's with a wonderful partner, but I was like, oh my God,
she's lost to you.
And I was literally like, oh, so heartbroken, because she's like, I love her so much. But I think at the same time, it's not like this one-sided relationship with a sister, because having a sister is complex and wonderful.
Oh my God, yes.
Irritating and frustrating and
all of that.
So actually physically violent, but just like, just, you know, where you just want to share and express so many things with another human being. That
I really did love that relationship she had with her sister, and I mean I have a sister as well, so you kind of identify a little bit with that, like knowing that you have grown up with this person and spent so much time together and have so much history together, but there is an end point to that. And that is just so devastating to think that that won't be forever. Like
your
that
nuclear family becomes a whole lot of different families, and all those priorities are completely changed.
Oh my God, and you're not number one on their speed dial anymore. Not to guilt my sister.
I never felt that with, like, I have two brothers as well, and I've never felt that with my brothers. Like, obviously we're very close and I love them a lot, but it's not the same. It's not the same with my sister. And I don't know, I think that relationship that that Cassandra had with Rose is really quite beautiful in the book.
I thought it was really interesting because I've got two brothers as well. Like, we're
oh my God, our family is exactly the same.
I know.
You're like the same person.
And I love the bit where Cassandra suddenly has this dawning realization that Thomas has his own interests.
Yes,
and his own personality.
Yeah, more
that's
complex.
actually really cool.
Oh yes, because it sort of inverts that whole, I think, that whole really stereotypical, like, oh, my parents are people too. I think this was even more interesting because it was, oh, my siblings are people too, and they're going to have their own lives.
Yes.
Without me.
Especially
being
for
put
Cassandra
involved.
talking about a younger brother, because so often I have two of my siblings are younger than me, so it's very much I think you sometimes forget that they are like actual people with like real thoughts and dreams and whatever else. So I really love that too. That sort of like, oh my God, Thomas, you read stuff? Yeah, that was really
And
cool.
it's modern poetry that he understands.
Yeah.
Oh, burn Cassandra.
Oh, man.
I do have to say though, I read this book probably about 5 or 6 years ago for the first time, and I know Fee, you've read it before, and Neve, this was your first time.
Like a virgin.
Oh my God, yes. And what I found really interesting is, I guess 5 or 6 years ago, I was sort of flirting with feminism, and now we're in like a really committed relationship. But when I first read this 5 or 6 years ago, that's sort of where I was at, and now when I read it again, it's really interesting how some of my reading of it has shifted because I have shifted as a person.
Nice.
And so there was a few little bits and pieces which I found quite sort of like great, a bit grating, and I guess it was written in the 1940s, and it is sort of set in the 1930s, although that's never particularly explicit. My research has told me that that's where it's set.
Yeah.
But there was a couple of instances where I was just, the feminist in me was just like, what? I mean, the way her dad kind of just and her brother as well, but the way they just kind of expect sort of Cassandra and Rose when she's there and Topaz to just do things for them.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a scene there where the father wants like a glass of milk or something. He's in the kitchen. He could go and get it himself, but he asks Cassandra to do it and just like expects her to do it. I know it's such a tiny thing, but it's just little things like that I just sort of went, oh, and I guess also the way everybody refers to Cassandra as a child.
Oh, can I just say, do not kiss someone and then say, my child, in the same context, because it's fucking creepy. I had to put the book down because I'm like, what the fuck, Simon? What the fuck?
I had a similar reaction. I was like, ugh.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there was a
It
bit
gave
of
me
like
Emma by Jane Austen flashbacks where it's all like, they're getting together, it's all really nice, and he's like, I've loved you since you were a child. I'm like, oh, no, gross. Top.
Yeah, some of that stuff was a little bit of the stuff that was
and it's
really
period.
grating.
It's part of it because it's period piece, but then just reading it from a modern lens is really unnerving.
Yeah, and I guess that sort of leads into that sort of question is when you are reading, if you are reading these books and you are reading them from a modern perspective, I'm not suggesting that we disregard these books or that we throw them out, but I still think it's important to be critical of those elements.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
To sort of point it out and say whatever you want, but don't dismiss these books. Absolutely not. I would never do that. But don't be afraid to be critical of them either. I think that's really important.
Oh no, we shouldn't just absorb these like ideas and these concepts uncritically, I don't think. And also in terms of the feminism, I sort of wanted to do the flip side of that and also like point out how modern some of it was in terms of her coming into, like Cassandra, coming into her own, like in her, like, it's almost sort of second, third wave feminism of like owning your body. I mean, that was a beautiful, was it the summer solstice or?
When she's up on the roof?
When she's sunbaking?
Yeah, when she's sunbaking.
That was such a beautiful scene.
The transition to her then sort of realising for the first time her feelings about Simon.
Yeah.
Really, I thought was just beautifully done.
It is a coming of age story, really, isn't it?
Definitely.
And I mean, having said that, there is a lot of points where I sort of did feel like Cassandra was pushing back against that a little bit, whether that was like, I'm not sure if that's a conscious thing. Obviously, I don't, we're not friends. I can't ask her.
Wait.
but-
Although
Wait,
I
we're
read
not
that-
friends?
No, me and Cassandra aren't
That's
friends.
what I mean. Cassandra and I are friends. I take this seriously.
We're BFFs.
She's on the Christmas card list.
Apparently, Dodie wrote a lot of herself into Cassandra. So
I have read that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that could be.
I wonder if she wrote the kind of men that she knew in her life into those characters, because I found it, having read it about 8 to 10 years ago, I'm like trying to be vague so I sound really young and fresh. I read it when I was probably, I don't know, 19 or 20. And I gulped it down, loved it. I haven't remembered a single thing about it except a glorious feeling of loving it. And so I was quite like rereading this. It was like a new book to me. And being quite a strong, like assertive feminist now, I'm like, oh, what? There is like, my copy, yes, I've accidentally torn it.
It's quite
But
dog-eared.
Yeah.
So dog-eared, and I penciled up different sections because there's so many specific sections where all the male characters completely blame the women for influencing them in different ways. Like, you
Yeah.
can't blame a man in love because it's the woman who's like
Oh,
cast a spell
that-
on him.
Yeah.
And there's one line that somebody's talking about Rose, and it's, but she's bad, really. Lots of women are. And they're
Yeah.
constantly
Oh,
saying how
yes.
bad women are for like
yeah.
having this spell over men. And I'm like, wait a second.
Just simmer down in your Madonna whore complex for like 1 second, please.
Also, please feel free to take responsibility for your own actions.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, there's so many scenes in this where it's like the woman is apologizing to the man for the man just leeching onto her. And I'm like, yeah, I'm getting almost violent with this book right now.
Get away!
So that's why you're ripping the pages, right?
Yeah.
I rip enough, every male character will stop being shitty.
But at the same time, I find it really funny is that I actually like the male characters as well, which I'm kind of really confused about because I'm like, you're a bit of a dickhead, but you've also got a great personality in other respects. It's like complex, which I think is what I really like about the book is every single character is so textured in different ways.
Yeah.
Like I was like, when I read this years ago, I can remember thinking, Rose, gold digger, and now I'm like completely like, I love you, Rose. I think you're such
because-
a brave woman.
Yeah, and I
Yes.
think brave is really the right word because she kind of feels the weight of her, like I said in introducing the book, like her family's fortunes like rest on her shoulders.
Yeah.
Like what a huge burden to have to deal with. And she's prepared to enter into a marriage with someone that she doesn't love because she's conscious of the fact that the ongoing survival of her family is her responsibility in a
Yeah.
way.
And
I mean, that's huge.
I know, because Cassandra tries to call her out like, oh, you're so cowardly and whatever. But I think I really do believe Rose when she said, oh, I go to bed at night and I think about, oh, at least they have something to eat tonight.
I believe her too.
Yeah, that's so heartbreaking, having that on your shoulders and then doing... And
Absolutely.
also with Topaz, you can sort of see
Oh,
that...
I love Topaz.
I mean,
so
isn't that
much.
I think their marriage is somewhat of a cautionary tale for Rose, though. Living with that and then having to think, okay, now I need to go and bring home money and, like, look after, like, because Topaz has that sort of, she's really focused, her whole life is really revolving around their father.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, it has that sort of Mr. Bennett, like Jane Bennett sort of vibe for me. I don't know about you.
Don't know if Rose would see Topaz, their marriage, the marriage of her stepmother and father, as a cautionary tale. I don't know if that entered her thought process at all. And I found it really interesting that how complex Topaz is, in that she is seen as this muse, this kind of woman who just inspires specifically men. Cassandra does point that out. She only inspires men. Which I thought, yes, Cassandra, astute. But what a bloody hard worker she is, and what a giving woman, an intelligent woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a complex woman with thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And she's actually like trying to pull the family up by the bootstraps and like get food on the table in the really hard parts.
Can I just, on a bit of a tangent, her role as that supporter to the male artist, and I'm putting that in quotation marks for the listeners, I think that's such a fascinating dynamic, and I actually think that was really clever of Dodie. I don't know if that was her intention, but we know throughout history so many of these, men that are put up as incredible artists or scientists or whatever their field that they're in have been able to do that because they've had the support of a wife.
Yeah.
And I have just recently been reading about women who were the sort of typist / researcher for their writer husbands. And you sort of think, I look at that relationship of Topaz and Cassandra's father, and that to me is exactly that.
Yeah.
She is there to support him, and he wouldn't be able to do what he's doing without her. Well, specifically sitting in the castle with a writer's block and reading detective novels all day.
Yeah.
Topaz is the one that's keeping that family sort of
together.
Yeah. But I think that's a really clever thing, Dodie. I don't know if she intentionally did it, but I mean, looking at it from where we sit now, I think that's a really interesting relationship.
Yeah, actually, I'll kind of revoke what I said before because I was sort of just throwing pasta at the wall in terms of ideas.
Pasta?
I don't know, like, you know where you like spaghetti at the wall and then see if it sticks?
Oh, yeah. Right.
Weird metaphors.
Celiac talking. I'm like, is it gluten-free pasta?
Otherwise, pass. I remember coming into it, and then there was that really frank conversation of like, I can't remember exact words, but she's basically talking about how being in a husband, like, oh, we're going to sell you basically to Simon, like, isn't marriage another type of sale? Yes,
but a lot of that comes up in the beginning.
So I think it was, maybe it's not a cautionary tale, but I think through Topaz and being in contact with her, she was very aware of the role she would need to play, and also just aware of like the world around her and how she would need to engage with it in order to keep the family afloat.
I really like that about Topaz, is because she is a businesswoman. Like she knows how to get money, but also kind of keep her sense of self about it. And she was passing those lessons on to both of the girls in terms of, look, men are going to think this and you do this. And I think that given how many constraints they had historically in terms of property ownership, in terms of are they allowed to have independence and a job and this and that, like they're restricted on so many levels. And Topaz like is this voice of intelligence, even though she's often portrayed kind of in asides of being this beautiful woman. I think Cassandra knows that Topaz has her smarts and her wits about her. And I think that develops throughout the novel as well. And I just really like that it is complex. Like, what do you do? What would you do in the 1940s, the 1930s, if your family's starving?
And you're
like,
so stripped of agency.
These people come along. I'm like, and one of them has a beard and he shaves it off and he looks attractive. It's like, well, what do you do?
Can we just briefly mention Rose making Simon shave that beard off?
What did you think about that?
I kind of felt like, I don't know, I feel kind of conflicted about it. I mean, I love beards, first of all. So I would be like, go beard. But also I kind of feel like, I don't know whether that was like a really mean thing for her to do or like a really kind of clever, this is how much control I have over you, I can make you shave your beard off.
I think that becomes a bit of a through line, that whole idea that one of the ways that women have agency is their power, and I say this in inverted comma, like quotes, over men through, because I think the father talks about that a little bit as well.
Using their sexuality.
Yeah.
Oh.
In a very misogynistic sort of lens, but I think that was sort of one of the ways in which she could sort of say, okay, I'm stable with it. actually, that's sort of part of the reason, because I think she saw Topaz really trying to reach out to their father and try and engage with that relationship. But I feel like the father was very closed off, and so that was her trying to really establish boundaries and where she stood.
Yeah.
I really like, though, and I found it hilarious, is how everyone was, well, it kind of sounds mean now that I say it aloud, but I found it hilarious that, so when the Americans first come and...
that is not an American accent.
No, it's not. It's,
Okay,
I
cool.
was trying to be all like, the Americans.
Okay, cool.
I don't know, indeterminate accent trying.
Yeah.
Definitely not British. So basically they come and they're strapping men with lots of cash, and one has an unfortunate beard and he looks like the devil. Whoops. Which is why I don't mind he shaved it off, because I too thought he looked like the devil, even though there's no picture. I was just with them on the journey. I'm like, yeah, scary profile, shave it off. But I really like how Rose tries to change herself, and she's very affected, and she's just like putting on airs and graces, and everyone's like, what are you doing?
Bitch,
You
please.
look like ridiculous. And I think it kind of comes back to that of when you're not authentic to who you are, you come across as really contrived and really fake.
So it's unmasking.
Yeah.
So the shaving, which is what I'm trying to do, is a kind of unmasking for her, and then also for Cassandra, because I think that's the first time she actually says, oh, Simon's attractive.
But even, like, I don't know necessarily unmasking of him, but I think maybe that is kind of... Rose doesn't know what she's doing, and she's trying out lots of different things. She's trying to be Topaz for a while, and she can't be Topaz, because Topaz is, like, this fabulous bohemian warrior woman who, like, walks around naked all the time and is just owning herself and her body and her thoughts. And when
But she's also vulnerable, I think. I mean, with the relationship with the father. Do we ever know his name?
the father's name.
He's kind of just called Mortmain the entire way.
But that's a surname.
Yeah, it's weird.
Is his name Mortmain?
Maybe his name is Jacob.
From his book?
No,
Yeah.
isn't that Melman's name though?
Oh, that is.
Yeah.
Ah.
No, oh, that would be so... He's wrestling with himself.
He's
Oh my
trying
God.
to climb up a ladder.
Let's go with
God.
his name's Mortmain, because I just find that really amusing when people have the same name twice.
Does that often happen, though?
I've heard of a couple of people. I know a couple of people. I
Maybe I
find it
need
quite
to start
amusing.
hanging out with people rather than books.
Why?
Yeah,
How would you
good
do
point.
But you wanted to talk more about Topaz and her past, I remember.
We did briefly touch
Yeah.
on that. There's reference to, I guess there's reference to violence.
Yeah,
really.
domestic violence in
Domestic
her
violence.
past.
And she does have a conversation with Cassandra where she's talking about her relationship with Cassandra's father, Mortmain, that she was prepared for anything in the relationship, even violence. And I literally just was like, underline.
Oh.
Didn't remember that when I was 19. Must have skimmed over that section. But I was like, that's really interesting in itself.
And also the line where she's like, oh, to get him writing, I wouldn't care if he massacred me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, whoa.
It's really taking the idea of the muse to some pretty terrifying
But
But
heights.
not even the muse, the role of the woman in a
Yeah,
marriage or
absolutely.
the role of women in society. Like, string her up, guys. Like, she's just, like, at your mercy. And I just thought, fucking hell. Like, amazing book. I think Dodie has been criticized for making it quite a naive kind of nostalgic view of the Britain that she used to live in, and she was essentially exiled from.
But that kind of makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
she was living in California. Her husband was a conscientious objector to World War II, and they were living in California during the Second World War. So I'm actually not surprised that she would write that sort of thing, because
And also
she's
the
over there like
homesickness.
missing this England, and so she's going to romanticize it to a point, I think.
Which I don't think she has romanticized it. I was going to say the exact opposite to that, whereas maybe she feels braver in, like, pointing out how fucked up marriage, the construct of marriage is for the role of a woman in different circumstances. And she was in America, and she could be like, hey, I'm going to call this out. Like, you know, women have been
But she does it very subtly, though. It's not like she's not hitting you on the head with it.
No.
Yeah.
It's really quite subtle. And some of the things that she does, like when, you know, I was prepared for violence, I mean, that is sort of almost, you read that and you almost sort of rear back, like, what?
Yeah, so I don't think it's subtle. I think it's almost matter of fact of what Topaz was prepared for. Like, I don't think it's like this, like a plot point in itself. I think it's like part of the greater context of where the book sits in its time and place.
Yeah.
And the role of women.
I think that's what I mean by saying it's subtle, in that it's not a major plot point. It's just sort of there.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's matter of fact within their lives, so it makes sense that it's matter of fact within the book.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's fine. Though who said it was the naivety and people was criticizing in that respect? Because I feel like there's...
Well, Cassandra's called naive. Simon calls her
she's...
naive.
What is it?
Consciously naive.
Oh, I think that's part of the charm of the book. And also going back to having it as a diary, you can see her progress in her writing style and how she thinks about, like, life. And, you know, there was that beautiful, like, that little thing where she performs the consciously naive sort of self for Simon. And I think you can sort of, it's beautiful in that because it's a diary, you can sort of see her gradual awareness of the people around her and of herself. So I think the naivety is part of an arc of naivety to awareness, and it makes it really like a classic.
Yeah.
I don't know if she is consciously naive the whole time, which I agree is that kind of like...
Is she even at the beginning, though?
She's so fucking switched
she's really
on.
smart.
Like, there's one line I know.
She's really, like, I feel like she notices a lot.
She
really picks up on a lot of what's going on around her, which I find just... I think she's great.
She's astounding. And I think she shows her willingness to self-analyze and analyze the world around her constantly. And she may not have all the answers, but
that's
by
okay.
God, she's going to write some journal entries and figure out her thoughts and feelings, and she'll get
Who has
somewhere.
all the answers anyway?
No, exactly.
At 17.
And there was one little line in there where I was just like, the bird watcher in me is so happy. Where she, like, notes that the birds, like, tilt their heads to listen to the movement of worms, like, through the ground before pecking at them. And I was like, yes, Cassandra, you're switched on. I love you.
No, that's true.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would say she would. I think that sort of consciously... Or is he alluding to the fact that she's maybe putting on a little bit of an act?
But he doesn't even know her at the time.
I don't know. I don't think she's consciously naive, but I think there's...
She was in a bath, though.
Well, she does. I
like,
think there
who acts their normal self when you're in a bathtub and there's people
and somebody
around
walks
you?
in on you.
And you need a towel.
Well, I think she starts the novel feeling like there's so many questions about her life, and like she's imagining herself. Yeah, she's imagining herself marrying. She's imagining herself doing
But does
all
she
these
imagine
things.
herself marrying? She imagines Rose getting married.
Oh no, she imagines herself marrying not
Neil.
Simon. Neil, thank you.
Once the
and also
Americans
there's things
come.
she's learning as well. She's learning how to, like, she learns basically how to love in this book.
But then can we talk about, like, she's imagining herself marrying Neil, and, like, that obviously feels like a reality for her. Can we talk about the ending?
Don't we all learn how to love in this book? I feel like I learned how to feel feelings in this book. I was like,
oh man.
Oh, so many feelings in this book. And I was like, oh, okay. That's how people do it.
Oh man, the ending, there's those ending lines. You can just...
I really love the ending.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Because I feel like if it had have been any other way... I don't know, we've just said we're happy to do spoilers here, so if you don't like spoilers, probably, like, maybe skip through this section.
No, don't skip over it. Just pump up some, like, Diana Ross music.
True.
Dance around.
Maybe go and make a sandwich now.
Make some pasta and get ready to throw it at a bowl.
Make a cup of tea and just, like, chill out for a bit. But I really love the fact that it ended with her not marrying.
Yes.
With her being you know, thinking about her future in a different way.
She
I thought
actually
that was
wants.
fantastic.
She wants to get a
beautiful
career.
progression.
I know.
Yeah.
Become a secretary. I know that it's to kind of facilitate.
But she wants to
finding-
write.
Yes.
Yeah, she wants to write, and she's learned how to be selfless in love, but in a way that doesn't bring her down. Doesn't lessen her
absolutely.
in any way.
She's not going to shrink herself and quash her ambition or her desires to pursue a marriage.
And also not to pursue a marriage where she'd always feel like she had to prove something
Yeah.
to someone. And having that awareness is something I don't think she had at the beginning of the book, but then something she discovered, which was beautiful. I think.
I really loved that ending. I would have been so thoroughly disappointed if Dodie had married her off. I would have been really quite distraught, I think. So I mean, you get to the ending and you're just like, yeah, Cassandra, I'm just so excited for where you're going to go and what's going to happen in your life, because I just feel like she'd taken a massive step then to say, actually, no, I need to do this for myself. I need to live this life for myself.
Yeah. And also being the ability to say no and to have conversations about relationships, like on the bridge with Stephen, and saying, actually, no, you're not what I want, and I'm really sorry, and I'm always going to be grateful to you, but I need to do what I've got to do. It's something that's really adult.
Hugely.
Yeah. And I was just
I struggle with those conversations, and I'm 30. I was going to say nearly 30 then, but I'm definitely 30.
Suddenly 30.
So, would you guys recommend this book?
Yes.
Should people pick it up and read it? And who are these people? Are they
Anyone?
Yes.
All of the people.
Every people. Every person.
No, I would definitely recommend it. I think it's a lovely read.
I'd probably preface it by just saying it's in this time, and so you need to be aware of that going in.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
But-
like we mentioned that, being conscious of that is pretty important.
But
Lest you throw the book against the wall. But yeah, I would definitely recommend it.
yeah.
Would you, Neve?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think there are very few books where I've sort of finished them, sat down, and just sort of had that complete sort of, oh my god, this has been such an experience, and this is such a whole piece of art that I've just now had, and so recommend.
That's really beautiful, Neve.
I'm almost warming up.
Would you think? I mean, you've dog-eared a lot of pages, so I feel like that is an indication that you would.
Yeah,
You
so
have
if anyone
opinions.
wants to borrow it, you're going to really have to use a bookmark.
This is the copy that's had the page ripped, though.
I may have written notes, and I want to steal some witty burns from Cassandra. And, pretend they're mine. I'm like,
Cassandra Burns.
yes. I would definitely recommend this, and I think I really want to revisit it in another decade, and maybe just keep doing that, rolling with it, because I felt no. This is going to sound really stupid. Given that I can't really remember the first time I read it, but I definitely connected with it in a different way from the first time. Because
Absolutely.
Yeah.
there
I
are
agree.
Rose, Topaz, and I can only imagine that my reflections and experiences with this book will continue to shift and change as I'm
Absolutely.
marching my way through life.
So I'll
Strutting.
do we put that in the diary now? 2027.
Wait, let me
Should we catch up?
Just
in my journal.
to
I'll just put a note in my
future
phone.
me, get ready to get fucked up. Because this book will fuck you up every time.
Oh my god,
You're assuming that you're going to forget? Are you assuming you're going to forget?
Probably I would. Well,
Yeah, okay.
I'll remember some of it, because I really, this has actually made an impact on me, I think. But I think I'll forget some of the plot points, and I might have forgotten a bit of it, so I'll probably be just get ready for the ride.
I totally
That's
forgot the
okay.
ending. I literally was thumbing my way to the end going, what's going to happen? And then I was like,
Do you know what I forgot?
Mm.
I forgot when they locked him in the
Can we
Yes.
locking him in the castle? Oh my god.
In what was it
I
called?
laughed aloud.
What
It's
was
beautiful.
it? Do they call that the castle though? Because that's
It was
not
like a tower.
in the tower thing.
They literally
I'm
locked him in a tower.
Pretty sure
I
it
thought
was
it was
a French
fantastic.
word.
Yes.
Thomas really came into his own then.
And Cassandra's like, maybe he's like, don't be a weak bitch. Look at me.
Basically, that's what he was saying. Maybe slightly different language. That's what he was saying.
Siblings, so great. All right.
So it's a yes all round. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Woohoo!
So much yes.
Okay, recommendations. So, what have we been reading, listening to, watching, seeing, experiencing that we want to give a big thumbs up to this month? Neve?
Okay, well, I have two. I have a film and a TV show. So, my film is Get Out, which you've probably already heard of.
I've seen it on Twitter, but I haven't actually seen it.
So, I'm not, by the time you listen to this, I'm not sure if it will still be in cinemas, but if it is, go out and watch it. Basically, it is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner meets sort of every really creepy body horror thriller you've ever seen. So basically, it's fabulous. Jordan Peele wrote and directed it.
Talented.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You know him from Key and Peele, the comedy sketches. And the film actually is really comedic, but why you watch it is because of its intelligent way, how it deals with race and race relations in America. Things to watch for definitely with how they use cameras and eyes and how the imagery associated with that is just really wonderful. Give it a watch.
Awesome.
Is it scary?
Yes.
Might be a daytime watch.
I might need a blankie and I might need to watch it with someone. I don't know if I could watch something.
Best watched in the dark with possibly someone to grab and then also someone to then discuss what you've just absorbed and witnessed.
Or cry with afterwards. Be consoled and
I actually prefer to watch scary movies in the middle of the day with all the lights on and the curtains open.
I just don't watch them. I'm such a I'm like racing heart right now.
Well, I'm the same way. I don't particularly like them, but I will watch it if I think it's interesting and unique enough, and this definitely is.
Awesome.
Okay.
Cool.
And my TV show in same sort of similar thematic vein is Dear White People. It is
It's on Netflix, yeah?
Yes, Netflix. It is an sort of an adaptation. Basically, it was a film by the same director / writer, I believe, Justin Simeon. It was a 2014 movie that was pretty fabulous. Very Obama era. Sort of discussions, whereas this is like a step up from that. Really delves deep into each character. Basically, Dear White People is a TV show about African American students in a predominantly white university. If you don't have time for all of them, the real highlight is episode 5. It was directed by Barry Jenkins, as you may know from La La Land. Oh, sorry, Moonlight. He directed that. And yes,
You were doing, yeah, okay. Very well done.
thank you. I thought of that joke and I'm like, it's going in.
And the award goes to Neve on this one. Yeah.
Thank you. So that's episode 5. It deals with the character Reggie, one of the sort of characters that doesn't get as much focus on the film, but definitely there's a moment, there's a scene in that episode which is just absolutely so powerful, and it's a must watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Nice.
What do you got, Fee?
Very good. I've been been doing a bit of reading, bit of listening, and I recently read Small Acts of Disappearance by Fiona Wright, which is a collection of essays that delves into the concept of hunger, and she went through anorexia, and it was a really interesting read. It was quite moving, and a topic that I haven't read a lot about, but her writing is poetic and beautiful, and I think it's one of those collections that I'll probably revisit in a couple of years' time just to reread, because she's stunning.
I would second that recommendation. I read that book last year, I believe. I'll have to check Goodreads. Yeah, I would second that. It's incredibly poetic, and it's obviously a very complex subject, and it's a very serious subject, but I think she deals with it, really quite, I don't want to say beautifully, because that seems the wrong word to use in this context, but it's really well done, and I think it will age well. It'll be one of those, like you said, it'll be one of those collections you come back to.
And I definitely learnt so much, and I wasn't even aware about so many aspects of the condition and her motivations, and she kind of really takes you on her journey, and highly recommend. I've also recently read It Can't Happen Here by Sinclair Lewis. It hasn't really aged that well. It's not kind of up there with kind of 1984 and other kind of political satire / dystopian novels. It was written in the 1930s, kind of fell off the bestseller list, but it is quite a remarkable read. Not really that strong of a narrative as such. The story kind of toos and fro's a little bit and is all over the place, but it's basically about this guy who doesn't have any political training whatsoever. He's very bombastic, and he's nonsensical, and he's vain, and he's arrogant, and suddenly becomes the president of the United States, and the world just kind of falls apart, and it is a frightening read. I was literally frightened by this book, and it's
yes, because it could never happen.
It can't happen here. And
doesn't sound familiar at all.
So if you want a book to feel glum about, pick that up, because I felt bloody glum. Glum.
That's sometimes dystopians hit too close to home, and I feel like
especially in 2017.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. So to get myself out of a glum state, I decided to pick up Hannah Kent's Burial Rites, and well, poetic, but not uplifting by any stretch of the imagination. So I've been feeling down in the dumps lately from books, but I'm probably one of the only people who hasn't read Burial Rites. I'm sure many of you have heard about it or read it, and have heard many good things about it. So there's not much to say other than read Burial Rites. Other than reading, I've been listening to the wonderful podcast out of Melbourne, Hysteria, which is just interviews with females in creative industries, and it's fabulous.
It's great, yeah.
I can't wait for season 2. I'm literally countdown is on.
Yeah, it's a really great one. I would recommend that one too.
And the last thing I've been listening to is S-Town. Have you guys listened to S-Town?
I have not.
I have heard so many great things about it, but I have not yet given it a listen, and I've heard it's one that you need to marathon. So I'm saving it.
Yes, definitely. It's. I'm really grateful that nobody has kind of done spoilers. I know a lot of people who have listened to it, and just it's really hard to talk about without spoiling certain parts, but it's basically so many stories that aren't often told, and it's told so beautifully, and I reckon I'm going to be thinking about these characters, these people, for a very long time. And if you get a chance to listen to it, please do, because I want to talk about it with you guys. Listen to it, but I won't spoil it here.
Okay.
So don't worry about that, guys.
Okay, my recommendations. I've got a couple of books. First up is Julie Coe's Portable Curiosities. Julie was just on the Hysteria podcast, so that's
such a great interview.
Nice little link there. So I read Portable Curiosities earlier this year. not too early, only about a month or so ago, I think. And it's a fantastic collection of short stories. It is super brilliant and very funny and very clever. And yeah, I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. It's very lucky. I think we have a lot of really great short story writers, and Julie's definitely one of them. She was just actually awarded by the Sydney Morning Herald one of the 2017 Young Australian Novelists of the Year, and well deserved, fantastic. Another book I wanted to recommend is Play On, The Hidden History of Women's Australian Rules Football. Something about me is that I love football, particularly women's football, big women's football fan, and this is a fantastic book. I think even if you're not much of a footy fan, it really goes back into the history of women playing football, and I learnt a lot. I had no idea that the first organised games of football played by women were in 1915 in Perth.
Oh, legend.
Yeah, it's amazing. And there were games happening in the 40s and 50s in Melbourne. So it's a really, really great read. Even if you're not a footy fan, there's a lot of fantastic stuff.
Yeah. Do they have women wearing shorts?
No, they were sort of like
netball outfits.
No, they were like dresses. They were like silk dresses.
How do you kick in a silk dress?
Well, some of the
you like hike it up.
Yeah, that original game was between the factory girls and shop girls of a department store in Perth.
Oh,
so some of them a lot of them were actually seamstresses or dressmakers. So they actually developed these sort of techniques that would with like hook and eyes or something like that, I'm not sure, to sort of almost make the dress into shorts.
Like culottes or something.
Yeah, something like that, I think, yeah.
That would be a fantastic novel of just, write that, please. I want to read it.
Sure, I'll get on that. I'll just do it straight
away.
Yeah, so definitely recommend that. Even, like I said, even if you're not a footy fan, it's just a fantastic read and really well done. The other thing that I want to recommend, although it's not actually a recommendation, it's more like a
warning, steer clear?
No, not a warning at all. It's more like just a heads up about what I'm going to be doing in June. And I'm assuming I won't be the only one. So the third season of Twin Peaks has dropped.
Yes.
A couple of years after the last one.
Just a few.
Just a couple. So my plans for the next few weeks are actually to rewatch the first 2 seasons and then jump into the third.
I'm planning on carrying a log around the place so I can, get into character and just be the log lady.
I'm going to be making a lot of pie.
Nice.
Pie.
Please invite me around.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a little bit nervous about it because I'm not exaggerating about my nervousness around horror films. Like, I was terrified watching Twin Peaks.
Really?
The giant just, oh my goodness. Oh, yeah, owls. It's made me look at birds in a different way. Cautiously. Just like, what are you thinking? What are you plotting and scheming? And,
Yeah, no, that should be really fun. I'm actually really looking forward to that. Going to do that same sort of, if you're going to do the binge watch of S-Town, I'm going to do a Twin Peaks binge. So, there is a podcast happening around that that a friend of mine, Hayley, is involved in, which I recommend checking out. Just called the Twin Peaks Season 3 podcast, so definitely check that out. They're on Twitter as well, and if you're watching the third season, you can jump on there and follow Hayley's podcast as well.
Perfect.
Cool. That's a lot of recommendations.
That is.
If people listening like watch and read everything we've just recommended, that's like a good month of their life gone.
That's a time. Well, I thought we were just doing a few, but you guys just seem to like pull out a list.
Clearly, I've been like busy. And that was like an abridged list. I had a few other things on there, but I'm like, you know what? Bit of mystery never goes astray. What have I been reading and watching? I'll keep a few things close to my chest.
Save them up for future podcasts.
Yeah.
Nice. Although I'm sure future podcasts you'll have more things to recommend.
Oh my God. And
maybe we should do a separate podcast just like Fee's recommendations.
I laugh, but then I'm like, great idea. I'm on board. a blabbermouth. Yeah, I love talking about books.
Okay, so that's it. Are we done?
I think we're talking about the book we're going to do.
Oh my
next
goodness, I nearly
podcast.
forgot.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the book we're going to be talking about next month is Han Kang's Human Acts.
Gorgeous cover. I'm
It is
so
great, isn't it?
excited. Yeah.
Love me a good cover.
Yeah, pretty excited about that one. So I actually read The Vegetarian early this year, and that is a spectacular book. The structure alone is just remarkable, just incredible, very, very clever. So I'm really excited to jump into Human Acts. I think it's going to be fun. So if you want to read along and chat with us about that, please do. We'd love that.
And where can people find us?
Where can they find us? Well, you can find us on Twitter at Lit Canon Ball, Instagram at Literary Canon Ball, or you can search for us on Facebook, Literary Canon Ball.
Beautiful.
All the socials.
And
don't
don't
forget
Snapchat. Yeah.
Actually, very irregularly updated Snapchat is available. If you want to snap, I will snap back.
Every day I'm Snapchatting.
Yeah,
What are we on Snapchat?
Lit Cannonball.
I should probably know that.
Snapchat on the floor. Snapchat. Do it well.
I think I'm too old for Snapchat.
Oh no, well, if any young'uns like me want to snap, snap me what you're reading.
Ah, definitely. Snap Neve what you're reading. Fantastic.
And then Neve can pass it on to non-Snapchat people.
Yeah.
I hate Kirby and
You
me.
can send it to me.
Please email me.
Speaking of email, for those of you who are not on all the socials, I'm sure you are, but if you're not and you want to send us an email, you can get in touch at literarycannonball@gmail.com. We'd love to get emails, so send us an email. And a snap.
Yeah,
Tweet us.
snap us.
Do it.
Bye.
Bye.
Feeling
Bye.
good.